ground explodes under a sequence of violent impacts. Entire tunnels collapse as a wave of black ants surges in like an unstoppable force, tearing through every layer of the colony. Soldiers are thrown against the walls, crushed before they can even react. The air grows heavy, filled with dust, heat, and destruction. Crag emerges in the middle of the collapse, charging against the enemy flow without slowing down. He intercepts a direct attack, clamps the invader in his mandibles, and hurls it against the unstable ceiling, which shatters on impact. Before the body hits the ground, another enemy leaps from the shadows. Crag spins his body and destroys it in the same motion, forcing his way forward. But the space disappears quickly. More and more enemies emerge from all sides, filling every opening, every crack, as if the colony itself were being consumed from the inside out. The defensive advance breaks apart. Entire lines retreat or simply vanish under the weight of the invasion. A crash above signals the worst. The ceiling partially gives way, unleashing an avalanche of earth that engulfs an entire group of defenders. The impact reverberates through every corridor as fire begins to spread through the internal structures, destroying chemical trails and plunging everything into disorientation. Crag pauses for a single instant, not out of doubt, but strategy. His eyes scan the chaos. Compromised entrances, blocked routes, scattered soldiers. The front line no longer exists. This is not a common invasion. It is a total takeover. Without hesitation, he changes direction and sprints through the inner corridors, crossing collapsing areas as chunks of earth fall around him. A massive block crashes down ahead. He leaps at the last second, raising the fall, and lands already advancing, eliminating 2 enemies on impact. The interior of the colony reveals an even more desperate scene. Workers run in every direction, carrying eggs and larvae as they try to escape the enemy advance. Some are intercepted along the way, brutally dragged to the ground. Others disappear under sudden collapses that seal entire passageways. Another impact shakes everything. A new breach is torn directly into the royal chamber. And then, the worst happens. The black ants form a compact formation, advancing with no real resistance. At their center, a different presence imposes itself. Larger, heavier, overwhelming. King Salveo. Each of his steps sinks the ground. Each movement displaces the air around him. He does not accelerate. He does not need to. Everything around him yields. Crag accelerates to his maximum, rushing through a corridor that collapses behind him as pieces of the ceiling fall like a rain of stone. He bursts into the royal chamber, destroying what remains of an improvised barricade. But he arrives to find the scene already collapsing. Shena is surrounded. The last guards try to hold their position, but are taken down one by one, unable to contain the advance. She retreats steadily, seeking a side route, but the path closes instantly as more enemies arrive. Crag keeps moving forward. He forces his way through, knocking everything aside, getting closer with every second, until the enemy flow changes. The attack becomes a blockade. The black ants fall back strategically, forming a living barrier between him and the center of the chamber. And then time seems to falter for an instant. King Salveo moves. With a single devastating advance, he breaks through the remaining space and captures Shena. Crag bursts forward at full speed, destroying everything in his path, but the ground trembles violently. The ceiling gives way. A wave of earth and fire engulfs the chamber. Crag is thrown backward, dragged by the impact. When he manages to stand, silence replaces the chaos for a cruel second. The chamber is destroyed. The enemies have retreated. And Shena is gone. The ground is still vibrating when Crag rises amid unstable debris. Fragments of earth continue to fall around him, forcing every movement to be calculated to the limit. The heat intensifies, the air grows heavier. The colony is not just overrun, it is collapsing alive. Without hesitation, he dashes through the ruined corridors, following the fresh trail left by the black ants. The path is far from clear. Bodies block passages, collapsed tunnels force dangerous detours, and fire already consumes entire sections of the structure. A sharp crack echoes above. Before he can react, the ceiling collapses in sequence. Crag accelerates at the last instant, crossing a collapse zone as massive chunks smash the ground behind him. The smallest mistake there would have been the end. But the worst does not come from above. From cracks in the walls, more black ants emerge, not as a disorganized swarm, but in coordinated groups. They are not just invading, they are controlling routes. Crag collides head-on. He pushes forward without slowing, slamming into the first group and forcing his way through with brute strength. One enemy is thrown into another, taking both down. A third clings to the side of his body. Crag hurls himself against the wall, crushing it on impact, already resuming his advance. The corridor narrows. More enemies appear ahead, while others begin to close in from behind. The space shrinks rapidly, turning the advance into a deadly funnel. Crag accelerates even more. He plunges into the middle of the group, spinning his body and breaking the enemy formation before the trap can close. The impact opens a minimal gap, just enough. He breaks through. Behind him, the corridor collapses completely, sealing the path with tons of earth. There is no return. Further ahead, the scene changes and worsens. The colony's structure gives way to darker, denser tunnels, carved differently. The walls are more rigid, the scent more aggressive. He has crossed the boundary. Enemy territory. The silence doesn't last long. Movement appears at the edges. Shadows shift through parallel passages, tracking his every advance. They do not attack immediately. They surround, observe, calculate. Crag slows for a second. Mistake. The ground beneath him partially gives way, opening a narrow fissure. He lunges forward at the last instant, avoiding the fall, but the instability gives away his position. The attack comes from all sides. 3 enemies strike at once. Crag blocks the first, dodges the second, but the third hits him from the side, dragging him against the wall. The impact cracks the surrounding structure. He reacts instantly. With full force, he drives the attacker into the ground, breaking its resistance, and spins to intercept another strike coming from behind. The fight becomes a whirlwind of rapid movements, with no room for error. But they keep coming. Each enemy brought down makes room for 2 more. The pressure builds. The air grows even heavier. The heat of enemy territory is suffocating. The space seems to tighten around him, as if the environment itself is aiding the assault. And then, a shift. The enemies retreat suddenly. Not in defeat. By order. The silence that follows is not relief, it is a warning. Crag advances more cautiously now, moving through a wide corridor that opens ahead. The ground here is firmer, the walls higher, and deep markings indicate the constant passage of something much larger. A tremor runs through the ground. Then another. Heavier. Slower. Each vibration carries a different weight. It's not collapse, it's movement. Crag braces himself, preparing his body for impact before even seeing it. And then, from the darkness ahead, something enormous begins to emerge. The darkness ahead moves as if it has a weight of its own. The ground sinks with each step of the creature that slowly emerges, revealing a massive silhouette that fills nearly the entire tunnel. The walls groan under the pressure, cracks spreading like veins around that colossal body. Crag does not retreat. He adjusts his stance, locking his gaze onto the threat as the space around him vibrates with each step of the approaching entity. It's not just size, it's absolute control over the territory. The creature advances, and then attacks without warning. A brutal impact tears through the tunnel. Crag lunges aside at the last instant as the blow obliterates the ground where he stood. Fragments explode in every direction, reducing even further the already limited space. With no time to breathe, he counterattacks. Crag surges forward, using the debris itself as momentum. He climbs along the creature's side, digging in at unstable points of support as he tries to reach a vulnerable position. But there is no visible weakness. The creature slams itself violently against the wall. The impact is devastating. Crag is torn free and hurled to the ground, sliding across loose earth until he crashes into solid rock. The entire tunnel trembles, threatening to collapse completely. He tries to get up. The body responds slower. Critical mistake. The creature is already on top of him. Another strike comes down like an avalanche. Crag rolls out of the impact by mere inches, feeling the displacement of air crush the space around him. The ground splits into deep fissures. Now there is no mobility. The tunnel is breaking apart. With every movement of the creature, new sections give way, turning the environment into an unstable trap. Staying means being buried, but escaping requires going through the monster itself. Crag chooses to advance. He charges again, ignoring the strain, entering directly into the attack zone. The risk is total. Any mistake now ends everything. The creature reacts faster. A lateral blow hits Crag squarely, hurling him against an already weakened wall. The structure breaks, opening an unexpected passage, and an abyss below. Crag slips. Half his body hangs over the void. The earth around him crumbles slowly, grain by grain. He clamps his mandibles onto a minimal ledge, fighting against his own weight as the ground continues to give way. The creature approaches again, blocking any chance of retreat. The tunnel won't hold. More cracks appear above. Fragments begin to fall straight into the abyss. Crag looks around, fast, precise. No safe route. No time. No choice. He lets go. His body plunges into the void. The fall is violent, uncontrolled, crashing against jagged walls until he disappears into the darkness below. Above, the tunnel collapses completely, sealing any path back. Silence. For a moment, everything stops. Then, movement. Crag is still alive. He slowly rises among debris at the bottom of an unknown chamber. The air there is colder, denser, different from anything above. And then he realizes he is not alone. Around him, gigantic structures stretch into the darkness. Natural pillars, deep galleries, and trails marked by something far larger than anything seen so far. At the center of the chamber, a trail, fresh, dragged. Shena passed through there, but she wasn't taken just deeper. She was taken to something far worse.